All righty. Hello, everyone. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Super excited for this wonderful teaching. I know it's just going to be so so needed, right? So it's Caretaking as cultural work, lessons from Toni Cade Bambara and Helen Daniel by Zoe Bambara. So looking forward to this wonderful teaching. And feel free, y'all, like I always, say in the beginning of our teachings, is to please feel free to share your name, your pronouns, and where you're based. We really love to shout folks out. And thank you so much for attending the teachings that we host for the School for Black Feminist Politics and Black Women Radicals. We're going to be getting started shortly. Hi, Heva from Los Angeles. Thank you so much for being here. Hi, Destiny, tuning in from Minneapolis. Hi, Michelle. Hey, from Philly. Yes. Jasmine from Memphis. Thank y'all so much for being here. Wow. Thank y'all so much for sharing. This is really beautiful. And I told you, Zoe, people have been waiting for this teaching. They've been on me about this teaching. Wow, thank y'all so much for sharing. I can't even catch up with like how many folks are joining. And I see Zuri from Jacksonville, Florida, Ron from Philly, a lot of Philly folks. Yes. Really so grateful for y'all to be here. And I've been so excited for this teaching. So we're going to be getting started shortly. Hi, Dee from London, Leo from Philly, Kayla from Florida. Hi. Thank y'all so much for joining. Oh, we have New Orleans in the house. Okay, we have folks from Manchester, Zoe. Okay. San Francisco. Wow, thank y'all so much. We're just going to start in one more moment. I just want to make sure folks are coming in and don't miss out on anything. And thank y'all for sharing. Please feel free to share more. Oh, we have Maria from Albuquerque. Thank you so much for being here. This is really beautiful. Well, we are going to get started. My name is Jamie Swift, and I am the founder and executive director of Black Women Radicals in the School for Black Feminist Politics. And it is such an honor to be able to host this teaching, Caretaking as Cultural Work, Lessons from Toni Cade Bambara and Helen Daniel by Zoe Bambara, right? I also want to shout out thank you to our ASL interpreter, Monique, for interpreting for us. Thank you so much for your time and your talent. Just really excited about this long-awaited teaching, which is a part of our Black Feminist Marronage Series, which is inspired by the power, self-determination, and activism of Black women and gender-expansive communities around the world. So our Black Feminist Marronage Series is a part of our fundraiser for the School for Black Feminist Politics to open up a physical location in the Washington, D.C. area so that we can continue to learn about the power of Black feminist politics. So thank y'all so much for joining and supporting the work of the School for Black Feminist Politics and Black Women Radicals. I have the honor of introducing our amazing teaching curator, Zoe Bambara, who is a queer doula, cultural worker, organizer, and writer based in Atlanta, Georgia. Zoe has led and participated in many direct actions and protests surrounding state-sanctioned violence and the defense of reproductive justice in Georgia and Kentucky. She was the digital organizer for Women Engaged, a reproductive justice organization centering Black women, femmes, and girls. She was also the deputy director of RISE, a free college advocacy organization that fought for the expansion of investment in students' basic needs while obtaining a BS in psychology from Morris Brown College. She is now the community and volunteer engagement coordinator for ARC-SC, the largest abortion fund in the Southeast. She has received her doula certification from Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and has received certification of completion from System Midwives. She has received her certification in childbirth education and comfort measures. She is now completing her prison doula certification. Zoe, you busy. You busy, Zoe. Okay. She currently teaches childbirth education in county jails in Georgia. Zoe's work is deeply rooted in the Black queer feminist radical tradition, and her work is heavily influenced by her grandmother, writer, cultural worker, Toni Cade Bambara. She hopes to open a brick and mortar for the Toni Cade Bambara Community Arts Center soon with her mother. In the meantime, they hold free film screenings and book club sessions for the community. And without further ado, thank you, Zoe, for just this wonderful teaching. Super excited.
Of course, and thank you for providing this space. Hey everyone, I'm Zoe. I'm so nervous. My mom kept telling me to calm down. So, I am going to breathe and I'm just excited to hold this space and to honor my ancestors. If I cry, y'all just cry with me, okay? I'm a Pisces. I do it all the time. But yeah, just excited to hold this space. This is going to be very interactive. I'm going to ask questions throughout the teaching, so I expect y'all to answer. I will be on my teacher thing. I may call people out. So thank you. But yeah, Caretaking as Cultural Work by me, Zoe. And I wanted to start off by asking everyone to drop in the chat or to say out loud the ancestor that you're bringing into this space and who you would like to honor. And I'm going to do a quick prayer for the ancestors if you would like to join me. If you don't pray, that's totally fine. But I wanted us to do this together. So as you're naming names outside, like out loud in your home or wherever you are, or if you're typing it in the chat, I'm going to read this out loud. Prayer for the ancestors. Our ancestors have given us life. They have paid a price for our freedom and growth. May we honor them with gratitude and success. They have built bridges for us to travel with their bodies and blood. May we travel carefully. They have learned lessons which cost them their lives. May we cherish the sanity of living and live through that knowledge. They have guided us through danger, seen and unseen. May we walk in faith. They have hindered and stopped our enemies. May we live with courage. They have opened roads and doors closed to us as a people. May we walk these roads and enter these doors with respect and understanding. They ask little for the priceless gifts they give. May we offer them more than they ask. We are their link to this life. May we live with honor and dignity. We are them, they are us. May we continue the great works they have started. They are our foundation in history. May we never forget to acknowledge and honor them. Ashe and Amin. So I wanted to ground us in honoring our ancestors, and also bringing them into the space as we talk about what it means to honor our ancestors and do cultural work. So next, that was a great introduction. Kind of already talked about the work that I do. I always feel like I'm bragging on myself, but I wanted to provide a full understanding of the work that I do because it literally, my mother and my grandmothers are the reason why I do the work that I do. So I am a prison doula. I'm a full spectrum doula. I teach childbirth education in jails. And I currently work at an abortion fund, the largest abortion fund in the Southeast. And my role specifically, I am the community and volunteer engagement coordinator. So I run our volunteer program, hoping to have childcare for our callers soon. And I also run our Plan B Southeast program, which we provide free Plan B condoms, lube, and pregnancy tests for community members throughout the Southeast. And outside of that, my mother and I created the Toni Cade Bambara Community Arts Center. And honestly, the Community Arts Center is just me and my Nissan Sentra and just riding around Atlanta, hosting free film screenings and book club sessions for the community. So wanted to provide that context and background. And also, if I need to slow down while I'm talking, let me know. When I'm nervous, I talk fast. So what are the goals of the session and why am I doing this? I hope that this inspires you to talk to your elders more, experience them and their stories while they're still here to tell them. I think elders deserve far more grace than what the collective gives them. We have a lot to learn. Two, find your role in community. And if you already have a lane, how do we deepen and expand the work we are already doing? And how do we continue to honor our ancestors? Um, I didn't get to meet my grandmother, Grandma Toni, and I did not get to meet well, I did get to meet my grandmother, Mama's, but she passed when I was 9 or 10 years old. So a lot of the stuff I wish I was able to talk to them directly about. And that's why I constantly advocate for people to talk to their elders and learn as much as you can while they're still here. So culture, work and caretaking. Let's see. So I pulled this quote from Musa Springer, who is a brilliant cultural worker. To call yourself a cultural worker as opposed to creative is to essentially say that your labor, or at least a particular fraction of it, occurs with the intention to uphold a certain culture. It proposes that your labor as an artist, your work in art and literature, is accountable to the idea of culture. And if we as organizers and anti-racists and socialists and communists and revolutionaries are committed to upholding a revolutionary culture, then our labor as cultural workers is accountable to the notion of working to uphold that revolutionary culture. That is, that we are not simply creating art for art's sake or writing for the sake of writing, but have a moral obligation to use our artistic and linguistic talents in the service of liberation. Culture worker, in its intended language, assumes an art or literature production which lends itself to upholding this culture of eventual revolution and subsequent post-revolution, and uphold the notion that culture indeed can be a powerful weapon. So I wanted to bring up what it means to actually be a cultural worker, and then we're going to talk about what it means to be a caretaker and what does care look like in the belly of the beast. So I pulled this quote from Premilla Nadazine. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing her name correctly, but it was from a podcast called Movement Memos. And New Economy Coalition has a resource list called We Care for Us, and it talks about caretaking as organizing. I recommend everybody go and look at that resource list. It's full of like great books and podcasts and things of that nature. Um, so I think even as we provide care in this moment, and even as I understand and deeply value community care, we have to simultaneously think about transformation and creating a different kind of world, because ultimately the care we're creating now is in part about survival, but also about imagining and envisioning a different kind of world. So I am hopeful in feeling that we will at some point get to a place where our care will not be a form of resistance, but will solely be a form of living and creating new ways of being. To me, creating a different kind of world is one where everyone's care needs are taken care of, where care is a system of collective support that is anti-capitalist, that is anti-racist, that is gender inclusive, that understands the different care needs that people have, and understanding the different capacity that people have to give care. I don't believe care can be egalitarian. Care is never egalitarian. It is not about equality, but rather it is about giving what we can, about getting what you need. And so for me, a real caring society would be universal in that sense, but it will be one in which we are all equally invested. So I wanted to provide that context before we get into talking about my grandmas. So now we're going to start with, I'm going to look at the chat a little bit to make sure I'm not. Let's see. Is everything okay with the screen? And can everybody see my screen and see me still? I just want to make sure. And the interpreter. Should I pause for a second? Okay.
Folks are saying the screen is good for them. And then I just like been back and forth trying to get both you and Monique on there. It was I'd add a pin.
Okay. I just want to make sure. I can continue. Okay, awesome. So this is my mama's, and quick little like backstory. I started calling her mamas. My cousins think it's because of my lisp, and that's crazy. That's not why I call her mamas. I call her mamas because we used to live in this building off of Boulevard in Atlanta, Georgia, That's where I'm from. I forgot to say that. But from Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised, a real Georgia peach. But my grandmother used to live on the 7th floor. And okay, awesome. I just resumed my screen. My grandmother used to live on the 7th floor, and I used to live on the 1st floor with my mom and my brother. And my dad was taking us home one day, and I was asking him where we were going, and he was like, "Well, to my mama's house." And that's why I started calling her mama's. So quick little backstory. But this is my mama's, born on October 4th, 1930 in Watkinsville, Georgia, which is Watkinsville is like right here in Athens, Georgia is right here. So she was really close to Athens. We had a family farm in Athens. While raising 6 children in Adamsville, Georgia, she went to trade school for nursing and worked for a doctor's office in Buckhead, Georgia. She was a devoted Christian and spent much of her time in church and servicing the community. While working and caring for her children, she looked out after every child in the neighborhood. It was extremely important for her to know and be there for her neighbors. She was one of the founding members of New Lights Baptist Church, which is on Campbellton Road. And when she retired, she started a Feeding the Unhoused Ministry at Mount Ephraim Church. She was a matriarch of the family. We always had Sunday dinners, church every single day. She went to church every single day to feed hundreds of the unhoused. Feeding people was her mission. There are many stories about how she hated snacks. So my aunt tells a story when she was younger, she ran away from home because she was tired of eating greens and mashed potatoes and turkey necks and cornbread for dinner and, clam chowder, just these extravagant meals that I wish somebody was at home cooking for me. And so she wanted to go to her friend's house because they were eating hot dogs and hamburgers, which isn't a hilarious story. But people like to say that you were going to be full when you left her presence, and that could be literally or that could be metaphorically. And I just wanted to shout out my family. I don't know if you could, hopefully you can see my cursor, but that's my Uncle Frank, that's my Uncle Stan, that's my Uncle Boone, that's my Auntie Feedy, and that is my father right here, and that is my mama's. And this is my Auntie Sandra, who passed away about 40 years ago. And yeah, so wanted to highlight my mamas. And going into that, while I was doing research and just collecting stories from um, family members and just like trying to get as much information as I could for this teaching, I ended up looking her up to see if she had an online obituary. And this was one of the comments on her online obituary that really, really stuck with me. Um, and it says, Mrs. Daniel, you saw a young woman raising 5 sons alone, and you went out of your way to say a kind word and to make sure that they were fed. You will always be in our hearts. I will always love you and miss you. My prayers are with your family. So kind of just spoke to what kind of person my grandmother was. She was raising children. She worked as a nurse. Um, she took care of the kids in her neighborhood. She took care of the people in her neighborhood. And every time she saw someone who wasn't getting fed, who wasn't getting housed, she would go and do that. I mean, they lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house in Adamsville, Georgia. And my aunt said that people consistently lived at their house, and she has no idea how they were able to get even out of the house for school in the morning in that 1 bathroom. But she said they always made it work. And I have a video in the next slide, and I'm hoping that y'all can hear it and see it. I did like a little interview with my aunt, and she kind of talks about my grandmother. I'm not gonna play the whole thing because then she starts talking about the roots, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But we're gonna see if this video works. You said that grandpa only had a 6th grade. Can y'all put in the chat if y'all heard that little? Okay, great. Okay, awesome. Education. What did mamas have?
She got a nursing degree.
Okay, so she graduated high school and then she went to get her nursing degree.
But she didn't get to completely finish because my daddy was insecure. And so he told her if she'd go back and finish, he was leaving. So she didn't go back and finish whatever. So I think she worked as I don't know, what's the lowest nursing thing?
I don't know.
LPN?
Yeah, something like that.
So I think she worked as an LPN, but if she had went and took that test, she would have been an RN.
Wow.
So she did RN work, but they paid her as an LPN.
Yeah, I think my dad was telling me that he was doing.
And then a lady that worked there cheated her, stole all of her, whatever you get when you retire. from that place. She stole it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So she hardly got anything when she retired. And when I realized how much they was making, man, I was like a millionaire compared to what they was making.
Really?
Yes. When I made it up to making $4,000 a month, shoot, they probably didn't make that for the year.
How do you think they were able to sustain so long?
That's the thing. That's why I get from them too. I bought a house with no job and no money and bad credit. But my daddy was the sharpest dresser. Ooh-wee. He knew how to tailor his own pants. You make the pants. He used to tailor. He wouldn't let my mama iron because he ironed better. Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know. They was just fortunate. I guess they worked together enough.
So yeah, that was, here, I'm gonna pause right here to look in the chat. Yeah, that's my Auntie Feedy. And she kind of talks about, well, it's a whole thing, but she worked in that nursing office for many years, retired, someone stole her pension, and she ended up working when she retired at Mount Ephraim doing the Unhoused Ministry. She opened it, and the church had to beg her to pay her. She did not want to get paid for her community work. They had to beg her. And even though she didn't have any money, she knew it was her communal responsibility. And yeah, it's mind-blowing. And so going into my grandmother, Grandma Toni, which is my maternal grandmother, Toni Cade Bambara was born Matona Merkin Cade on March 25th, 1939 to Walter and Helen Cade in New York City. Fun fact, my Nana Helen, which is my grandmother's mother, was born in Savannah, Georgia. So when I tell you got deep roots in Georgia, I will rep Atlanta to the day I die. I do not play about Georgia. 30 years later, she added Bambara to her name to honor the West African Mande community. She also changed her name to Toni when she was in 6th grade, which I love that story. After graduating from Queens College with a bachelor's degree in theater and English literature, she later studied in Paris. And she earned a master's in American Studies at City College in New York while serving as program director of the Colony Settlement House in Brooklyn, New York. She also worked in social services and was a recreation director at Metropolitan Hospital. In the mid-1960s, she worked for City College's Search for Education, Elevation, Knowledge Seek program and with Seek's Theater. She returned to the academy to become an assistant professor of English at Livingston College and also a visiting professor of Afro-American Studies at Emory and African American Studies in social work at Atlanta University. She was also a writer in residence at the Neighborhood Arts Center, Stevens College in Spelman, and she taught film and script writing at Louis Massai's Scribe Video Center in Philly. She also had my mama, Karma. She was also a single mom. And of course, Grandma Toni was a prolific writer, filmmaker. We have The Black Woman, Tales and Stories for Black Folks, Gorilla My Love, The War of the Wall, The Seabirds Are Still Alive, collected short stories, The Salt Eaters, Deep Sightings and Rescue Missions, Those Bones Are Not My Child, amongst, so many essays, short stories, poems. We also have the Johnson Girls screenplays, the Johnson Girls, Zora, The Long Night, Tar Baby, The Bombing of Osage Avenue. In addition to her teaching, writing, and producing, her transnational activism during the civil rights and Black Power movements led her to both Cuba and Vietnam. Also, a little fun fact, I just got back from Cuba. If you want to hear about that, of course, hit me up. But had a wonderful, beautiful time in Cuba. And the next story that I'm going to share mentions domestic violence. So I just wanted to add like a trigger warning. So if you don't want to deal with that, please feel free to leave, to mute me, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. I'm just going to give everybody a second and just look at the chat really quick. Okay, beautiful. I'm going to start. So I was trying to find stories of, well, there was one story in my mind that particularly stood out. when I was thinking about Grandma Toni outside of her like writing and filmmaking. And I remember a story that Nikki Finney talked about in Grandma Toni's documentary. Her great friend Louis Messiah has made a documentary about Grandma Toni, which will be premiering at I think it's Black Star Film Festival in Philly. So if y'all want to see it, that's where y'all need to be at. But in this documentary, Nikki Finney talks about how um, she and my mom were going to the movies or something like that, and a man stopped her and asked Grandma Toni if she was that writer woman. And basically, he wanted to buy a house. He wasn't a good writer. His wife wasn't a good writer, and they really needed help on their application. And Nikki Finney, in her mind, was like, she's not that type of writer. But my grandma was like, just come to the house on Sunday and I got you. I'll help you out. And the people came to the house. Grandma Toni helped them out, and they ended up getting that home that they applied for. And I was like, dang, I really should have thought about this earlier and reached out to Louis to get that clip, but it led me down another story that Nikki Finney wrote for the Feminists on the Feminist Wire about another instance of Grandma Toni showing up. So I'm gonna go ahead and tell this story. So early one morning, on the very day one of our workshops had gone on from 12 noon to 8 p.m., Toni Cade called and woke me up. It was 2 a.m. Nikki, I need you to come and pick me up. 15 minutes later, with a loose jacket falling over my pajamas, I drove through a bright starlit sky to Simpson Avenue. I pulled into her driveway. She put out her cigarette and got into the passenger seat. Blank is in trouble. She moved in 2 weeks ago with that new brother, the one with the big smile, works at the co-op. He hit her when she first moved in, and he's still hitting her. We're going to get her. Told her to put everything she could carry in some pillowcases and be at the door. He's not home now. We only have a little time. Blank was a member of Pamoja, and I had noticed she had not been herself as of late. She was an utterly brilliant young writer. Blank was a sweet, tender-hearted woman, too. She hadn't been to Pamoja in a while, and I had been too polite to inquire about where she might have been. We pulled up, and Blank was outside, standing in the near dark with her arms folded around herself. At her feet were 4 stuffed pillowcases. Everything Blank owned in the world was in them. Our eyes found each other through the windshield, in the headlights, in half darkness. I put the car in park, but didn't cut the engine. I got out, looking around. Nothing felt safe. We worked quickly. Nobody was talking. Toni Cade got out of the car and took 2 stuffed pillowcases and put them in the trunk of my Volkswagen. I took the other 2 and put them in the back seat. She got in and closed the door quietly. I drove Toni Cade and Blank back to Simpson Avenue and helped them get everything inside. What if he comes here looking for her? I whispered. He won't, is all Toni said. I gave her a hug. She eased down into the same chair that earlier in the day Toni had sat in during workshop, talking to us about community and the power of Black folks. I could hear her start to cry as Toni closed and locked the door. For 2 years, I had walked up the hill to Toni Cade's house hoping to learn how to become a writer. I had listened to every powerful word she ever uttered as she nurtured and guided us in the art of truth-telling and the Black storytelling tradition. But that night, as I stood on Simpson Avenue, unable to go home just yet, the definition of who and what a writer must be came crashing down through the stars. So I wanted to provide a story to show Grandma Toni as human. Often people come up to like my mom and will be like, how does it feel to have, Toni Cade Bambara as a mother? And my mom will be like, she's just mom. That's just my mama. And so she wrote so many great stories and essays and was a powerful thinker, but she was also human and she loved the people that were around her. And I think that's really important with the work that we do. And I'll get into that later in the teaching, but how can we be out there if we're not in here? So gonna continue to the next slide. And that's when we get into like the quotes, and I'm gonna check the chat just for a minute. And thank you so much for saying when it was over. I don't know why I didn't get it, why I didn't do that. Thank you guys. And I would love to, yeah, I don't have any problem sharing my slides. So as a cultural worker who belongs to an oppressed people, my job is to make revolution irresistible. And this is a quote from Conversations with Toni Cade Bambara. And I wanted to bring in this other quote. So the problem then that faces any artist. How do you do a little Brer Rabbit thing in terms of getting to that audience with this whole intricate, elaborate mechanism of printing and publishing and promo and critiques and reviews that gets between you and the audience that validates you, that credits you? And for me, that's the community that names me, which is not to say that reviews and professional critiques aren't important and aren't usable. But it's finally the community that calls you sister or calls you daughter or calls you mama. They can either make or break you because it's only that group. I mean, that's the group I'm serving. So if that audience is not reached and does not find anything usable, there's almost no point in doing it. Um, Love that quote. I often mention in the work that I do that I never want to be a voice for community. I want to uplift the voices that are normally never heard. And I think that's really important to not speak for the people around you and to find yourself useful in filling in those gaps. So I have a question for everybody. What do you feel as though is your communal responsibility and who are you serving? And I would love if people could share in the comments and I can read it out loud. Oh, and I would love to make a Substack. I actually do have a Substack and I just read people's stuff. I never write myself, but I really should do that. But yeah, if you guys could please just drop, what do you think your communal responsibility is and who are you serving? And if you don't know what your community responsibility is, that is also okay. Education in my family from Tia, that's beautiful. Teaching history, connecting folks with their ancestor, bringing whimsy to folks. Lives, love that. I'm probably not going to get people's names because y'all are typing and I love it. My students, my grandmas, my friends. I am partially serving my inner child. That's beautiful. I'm going to cry about that later. Creating and providing a service that I wish I had. My communal responsibilities to Black and Brown children and families, whether that's through art, education, special education, or education in general. Oral history and storytelling are my passions, especially focusing on my Caribbean diasporic lineage. Serving as a bridge between the generations of my family and as a bridge forward and backward in my spiritual and artistic lineages. That's beautiful. Being a soft place to land. Mashallah. Curating alternative spaces for health and well-being for women and femmes. To show up when shit hits the fan. And that is important. That is important. I serve Black, queer, and trans folk who create art, are disabled, and also want to change the material conditions for Black people. I'm a yoga teacher in training, an artist, admin, griot. I'm serving discarded Black mages and queer folks. I am learning that what role is, but education people that have disabilities like ADHD. I'm loving all of these answers. Y'all are so beautiful. Wanted to bring that up because I also want y'all to like give yourself a clap on the back for knowing what your community responsibility is and knowing who you are serving. And I'm hoping that you're staying within those communities that you're serving. And now I'm gonna go to, I'm hoping I'm doing good on time. Yes, I am a yapper, y'all. But I was a little nervous because like I said, I talk fast when I'm nervous. So love this picture. My mom said it was perfect to showcase Mama's like little smirk. But I pulled in another quote from Conversations with TCB. And one of the concerns that led me into the novel, The Salt Eaters, was pretense. I had a grandmother, not blood kin, but spirit kin, who had a little statement that would just knock me out. I would come bustling over to her place with all kinds of questions and issues and so forth and so on. And grandma would just look at me and ask, what are we pretending not to know today? The premise being that colored people on the planet Earth really know everything there is to know. And if one is not coming to grips with the knowledge, it must mean that one is either scared or pretending to be stupid. Love that quote. And so my follow-up question to that is, what are the gaps of care that you see in your community, and how does caring for each other preserve that culture? And that culture being, like I can answer this question personally. One of the gaps that I've seen in my community is that Georgia, living in Georgia, we have one of the highest Black maternal mortality rates um, in the country, um, probably in the world, to be honest. And I thought it was my duty and my community responsibility is how can I just me help change that just a little bit. And that's why I became a doula. And then I saw that there were gaps in childcare. So I was like, you know what? I can nanny. I have patience. I have patience for children, not adults. But that's another gap that I saw. That people were not being able to raise their kids in the villages because people didn't want to be villagers. They didn't want to be in community with children. And so that was a gap that I saw, and I was like, I need to figure out what my responsibility is to help with that. And I'm gonna pause here to look at the chat. Um, Lack of support, resources for people who are caregivers, absolutely. Dealing with conflict, there's no learning and understanding. Support for queer elders. Diaspora wars and gender wars are really killing us. I believe separatism is a Black community as a whole is distracting us, absolutely. We've lost generosity, abortion support being weaponized for being wrong, COVID denialism and disposal of disabled people, abortion support once again. Gaps in Memphis are child and domestic abuse, mutual aid, and child care. Gaps dealing with grief and transition, hoping that care work centered or something like grief. Dealing with support, absolutely. Non-causal responses to mental health. So we're all seeing lack of care. And what it means. And also, if you guys have like specific questions for me, I'm gonna get through these slides and then I can answer to the best of my knowledge after. But that was that is what led me to my community work was what are these gaps? And if I can't fill it, who around me can? And be able to compile a list of the people that I know could help. If that means I know I can't look after this kid this weekend, but I have 80,000 doula friends who might be able to. And so just wondering, how we can find our places in the community, and that's filling in those gaps. So wanted to talk about two stories. So my grandma Toni constantly immersed herself in cultural work with community being her central focus. And she understood that state-funded and recognized institutions like nonprofits, universities, and corporations were not the beacon of radical change. We had to get in the streets and learn from our elders, our peers, and anybody who'd be willing to talk. When The Black Woman was published in 1970, she adamantly pushed for it to cost 95 cents in order for it to reach the masses. When Spelman denied my grandmother's request to teach a Black woman writer's course, Spelman, God, that didn't stop my grandmother from teaching the class from her home for free to any and everybody in the community who wanted to join. Bus drivers, students, teachers, mothers, and anyone my grandmother passed on the street were invited to come to her yellow house on the hill on Simpson Road. They all sat in that crowded living room, learned, and engaged with one another. And my mom always talks about how crowded her house always was, and also how messy it was. And that I know who I got that from. And going to Mama's would take penicillin from her doctor's office to give to the people in the neighborhood who needed it, amongst other resources. She was also known for feeding whoever came to her door. She knew people could not get anything done on an empty belly. There are countless stories on Mama's filling in gaps that were needed. I'm going to tell two stories in particular. I went out to eat with my dad a couple days ago. I try to go out with like my uncles and aunts or like call them because I need to know, I need to hear stories. Because I think that their stories mold my work. Um, Even though like I also have really great boundaries with the elders in my life, because sometimes you can only really have a conversation with them for like 2 hours, and it's kind of exhausting, not gonna lie. But I I have those conversations because it's needed. And one of the stories I'm gonna tell two stories. The first one was with this guy named Daniel that he grew up with and he's still friends with. Daniel grew up in the Kimberly Projects in Adamsville, Georgia. Um, Daniel was very poor, like most people in Adamsville during that time, and he would get bullied for living in the projects. Now, my dad, very scrawny. If you've seen my little brother, he was built just like him. My brother's probably gonna kill me if he sees this, but just very like tall and lanky. And but when I tell you my dad defended Daniel down, he's like, y'all are not about to bully this kid for where he lives. And so after that, him and Daniel became really good friends. Daniel will always come to my grandmother's house, always. Um, but it came to a point where my dad wanted to go to Daniel's house. And before he went over there, Mama's actually called Daniel's mother, and my dad never knew this. Him and Daniel went out to dinner, I think a few months ago, and told this story to my dad. That my grandmother called Daniel's mother, and come to find out, Daniel's mother had him when she was 13 years old and was raising 3 kids on her own. I'm assuming this was around middle school, so Daniel's mother was in her 20s. And my grandmother called her and said, I don't want to lecture you. I don't want to embarrass you, but please tell me what you need moving forward. I want to be in community with you, but I also want to make sure that y'all are being fed. Do you need me to send food with Eric? And they ended up having, Eric is my dad, and they ended up having an hour conversation about what it means to be a parent and a mother. And Daniel told my dad that that conversation made his mom do a 180. And he is forever grateful for Mama's for having that conversation with his mother because it totally changed her perspective. And something that I take really seriously is how I maneuver this world because I know that us as people, we are walking propaganda. The conversations we have with people can make or break them. And I really love how intentional Mamas was with talking to this young woman because I mean she had my dad, he's the youngest, but she had my dad when she was 40. And so she understood the the how much it took to raise children. She had her first child, I think, when she was 19. And so that was like, and my dad never knew that conversation happened with Daniel's mother. And I want to tell another story with a guy named Jermaine. And now Jermaine used to sneak into the church every day to go see Mama's because she was always in the kitchen at church. And one day the church went down to Florida to do like it was the adults. They were doing like an adult cruise, something something. And Jermaine snuck on that bus. He was where the luggage was. Snuck on that bus without telling his mom. So they were in Florida about to board the cruise ship. Mom didn't know where he was. He didn't have no money for that cruise ship. He didn't have a ticket. He didn't have anything. And Mama's paid for his ticket and Jermaine stayed with them the entire time. Called his mom, made sure everything was straight. Fast forward, I think it was like 20, 30 years later, all my uncles went to their high school reunion and had like all the classes were lined up. And the principal came out to speak and, just thanked everybody for coming out. And the principal happened to be Jermaine. And so Jermaine came up to my dad and my uncles and basically told them, like, thank you for sharing your mother with me. And I think those stories just show their character and how, like, they really centered just people and humanized people. And loved children and just loved the communities that they were in and knew that they needed to fill in gaps that were needed. So I wanted to show those stories and share them because I think they're a beautiful testimony. And so wanted to get into the I hope this because when I do this work, it reads me. I was like, dang, I need to work on that. But work is not a luxury. What is your communal responsibility? My grandmother consistently vocalized that you must organize where you are. So go talk to your neighbors and organize where you are. I wrote a little piece. I was a little angry about something. And I wrote this, and a part of it was, my radical being doesn't stop when the clock hits 5 p.m. We have shit to do. Radical organizing will never send you a W-2, and radical organizing will never give you a student refund. Caring for the people around you is radical. You can't be out there if you're not in here. So I wanted to ask you guys, what comes to mind when you read this quote? If your house ain't in order, you ain't in order. It's so much easier to be out there than right here. The revolution ain't out there yet, but it is here, should be. And arguing that instant coffee, 10 minutes to midnight alibi to justify hasty headed dealings with your mate is shit. Ain't no such thing as ain't no such animal as an instant gorilla. And of course, that's from Grandma Toni, the Black woman on the issue of roles. In my mind, when I hear this quote, without hearing the rest of the essay, the first thing that comes to mind is wanting to do all this work out there, but you don't know your neighbor's name. And I would love to hear what you guys took from hearing that based off the conversations that we've been having for the past. I've been yapping like 45 minutes. Sometimes when we focus so heavily outward, avoiding ourselves makes me realize I need to be better at being part of my community. Start taking care of the people around you before you try to go be a revolutionary. Yes, clock that. Some of the real work looks like helping the people around you instead of being front and center. Yes. Folks to value in person, folks to value, yeah, personal connection and small acts of care that are truly life-changing and life-sustaining. Absolutely. Approaching to community-led resistance must begin with ourselves and our interpersonal relationships. We can help those around us. Absolutely. The revolution starts within. It starts with you. Talk to people around you, be part of your space. The work begins at home, then in your neighborhood, community, city, state. Yes. This is my favorite quote. Not all speed is movement. A call to really take seriously the work of being in relation to self and others. Don't rush to do the super visible things. The small scale private work is essential. Absolutely. I'm loving all these. I'm loving all this. Okay. Yay. So I wanted to talk about this really quick. This is like me interviewing my mom a little bit, but parenting as cultural work, raising our children as a village. Organizers and activists often forget we have little revolutionaries that surround us. My mother loves to say she raised good community members. It starts with our children. They will prevail and push our culture forward. And I quoted my mom on this. I was talking to her earlier today because I was nervous. And I was like, Mom, I need you to sit with me through this entire presentation. But she said organizers who are parents often think they have to choose between community work and their household. If you're at home watching a movie or eating dinner or laughing, that is not something to feel guilty about because you're not out there pounding the pavement. Your kids, your family are a part of the community. You do not have to choose. Quoted from my mama. And I wanted to share this story that she shared with me when she was 12 years old. And she wanted me to get this right. I wrote it down because she said, so I need you to really make this visible. I was like, yes, ma'am. She said when she was 12 years old, she went to sleepaway camp for a week, right? Grandma Toni sent my mom a 12-page letter, front, back, typewritten, single space, legal size paper. She wanted me to emphasize the legal size paper. And yes. And basically in this letter, my mom only read 3 paragraphs and she says she regrets not keeping this letter. But my grandma Toni apologized to my mom for not being able to balance her community work and her cultural work. And my mom was like, I'm not trying to hear all that. At 12 years old, she's like, I'm not trying to hear that, Mom. You're a great mother. I'm not trying to hear that. But as my mom got older, she realized that Grandma Toni felt as though she had to choose, and my mom was like, you don't have to choose. The work that you do as a parent, the work that you do as a caretaker is cultural work. Community starts at home. And I wanted to bring in some quotes from Conversations with TCB, which talks about the importance of children. So one of this is, as a cultural worker who belongs to an oppressed people, my job is to make revolution irresistible. One of the ways I attempt to do that is by celebrating those victories within the Black community. And I think that the mere fact that we're still breathing is a cause for celebration. Also, my job is to critique the reactionary behavior within the community and to keep certain kinds of calls out there. The children, our responsibility of children, our responsibility to maintain some kind of continuity from the past. And then Grandma Toni used to say that kids are portable. We cannot exclude them. We have a lot to learn from children. They have different thoughts, different perspectives. And I also wanted to start off, finish with this another quote from a interview she did. The question was, if you start concentrating on feature films, does that mean you will nurture it, change it, or do less writing? Or does that feed back into the writing in some way that nurtures it, changes it? And Grandma Toni said, I don't know. I don't know. It's all the work. Organizing is the work, writing is the work, and raising children is the work. So I wanted to shout out to all the parents out there who feel like they have to choose. You don't have to choose. The work that you do as a parent is cultural work and it's important in itself. Um, and yeah, and then of course this picture of my mommy and Grandma Toni. I love that picture. So all this to say, we need a healthy balance. My grandmother, my grandmothers both carried so much weight on their own. I don't think it's a coincidence that they both became ill and they both actually passed away from cancer. I do believe that it is our communal responsibility for all of us to help carry the weight. And this doesn't mean you have to publish multiple books or feed hundreds of the unhoused every day. This can mean taking your neighbor grocery shopping, walking somebody's kid back from the bus stop, or buying a meal from someone. Our material conditions are demanding for us to get in the field. Solidarity and advocacy consist of many different actions, and it's important to recognize where you fit and where you're able to commit. This is something that my grandmothers both knew very well, as one saw her role as a cultural worker to make revolution irresistible, and the other just wanted people to be fed. At the same time, we have to ensure that our goals continue to be the liberation of all oppressed peoples and the destruction of the violent capitalist system that is crushing us. We can't rest our way through radical change. The problems will continue to be there whether we rest or not. We cannot move too fast, too quickly, too fast, in a hurry either. We have to be strategic, organize at the root cause of the problem and the problems, and make solidarity a verb. So continue to organize, continue to advocate, continue solidarity and mutual aid, continue to hold those responsible for our oppression and exploitation accountable, because accountability is the bare minimum. We are aiming higher. Continue to dream and to fight for a world where liberation is here, because it is soon to come. My grandmother, and I pulled this quote and I wanted to end with this quote. This is from Conversations with TCB as well. My grandmother used to say that if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, then the whole universe will accommodate itself to you. That is to say, if you're on the right track and you are committed and your intentions are clear, then you can be passive, because the information you need, the teachers you need, the people you need, the resources you need are going to come towards you. And all you have to do is be receptive. So calls to action, and you could drop in the chat as well. How can you show up more within your community and also donate to help Black women radicals open a school? And yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. If you want to email me, follow me on Instagram, you're more than welcome to. But yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, Zoe. My mom is in the background and she's like yelling out her answers to your questions in the back. She's like, "Oh, I know this one. I love this one. I feel this resonates with me." And this is the beauty of your work. It's an intergenerational conversation on community, on caretaking. What you really taught was the building of a maroon based on your grandmother's wisdom and experience, that you cannot build maroons in new worlds without centering people. And so without centering community, you can't do it. And so I am so grateful, So thankful. And thank you for the shout out for supporting the school. And I will drop the fundraiser in the chat. We are opening Black Men Radicals. We are attempting to open, we are going to open, I should say, I'm speaking into existence, a physical location for the School for Black Feminist Politics. So we can have more conversations from Zoe, more conversations from other Black feminists from around the world, so we can continue to build Maroons and new worlds. And so thank you, Zoe. I'm just really, really, really thankful for this teaching. Like I said to you before, and I'll say it again, folks were hounding me for this. Zoe, I'm getting emails right now about, will this be available? And so even right now, I see a question. Yes, Hannah. So the recording will be on Black Women Radicals YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, and we're going to share it along with a reading list that Zoe will also curate as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Zoe. I also want to know that, folks, we have a Q&A section, a Q&A portion. I'm sorry, someone said they couldn't see me. I'm always trying to hide, y'all. I don't want to be seen a lot. We're also going to have a Q&A portion of the discussion. And Zoe, you already have tons of amazing questions, so I will ask. So the first question we have from Gabrielle. So the question is, so proud of the work you are doing. Actually, no, I'm so sorry. There were other questions ahead, but I just saw Gabrielle's. So
Okay.
proud of the work that you are doing. I always enjoy seeing everything you do. I wanted to hear more about your abolitionist practice, especially as you are beginning to do prison doula work. What part does abolition play in your work as a radical Black queer feminist cultural worker?
Ooh, that's a question. I get this, um, doing prison doula work and working in the jails. Um, and and my politic, of course, as an abolitionist, I also understand that people come first. And the mothers that I work with, the pregnant people that I work with, they are my primary focus. And so, yes, I can stop the sharing of the screen. And I will send the slides to you, Jamie, so we can send them out to people. But I often have this conversation because it does make me rather uncomfortable working in jails and prisons and having to talk to police officers and, and I don't like it. However, I understand that the work that I do is necessary. And I'm able to bring food into jails when they're not able to get fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. Um, pregnant people need amount of protein, they need this and they need that. And so if I have to be uncomfortable for an hour and 30 minutes, I will do that. So people are able to eat. I've had I've had mothers literally tell me they've had 6 or 7 kids. It did not know that they didn't have to give birth on their back. And just those little conversations make me know that the work that I'm doing is valuable, even if it's a conversation where I'm sitting here listening to how much you hate your baby daddy. That is fine. If you need to get that out, because I know you can't talk to anybody else, I will do that. And so I know that this world is not going to be like this forever. Um, but right now, I'm just focused on the people. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much, Zoe. That was a beautiful response. Sometimes you just gotta let people talk and speak their mind and whatever they're feeling. And so thank you. So the next question, and forgive me, I was looking at trying to look at all the questions, everything. So the first question is, can you speak more, Tavon, can you speak more on being in community with folks that don't want to or don't know how to be in community, especially how that's shown up for you working with kids as a nanny?
Mm, that's really good. Yeah, let me see. I'm gonna look at it and also can you I'm very annoying. So even if you may not like me today, I'm gonna hope you're gonna like me or need me tomorrow. But also too, I think just being a safe and comfortable person for people to be around is the first step. And just saying, well, if you don't need me right now, you're gonna eventually need community. So I'll be here when you're ready. Um, and I think you just have to have a lot of patience. I saw this tweet that's really been sticking with me, and it said something along the lines of um when you're in community and you know what your communal responsibility is, there are going to be moments where you're annoyed, where you're frustrated and you don't want to be bothered, but you still do it anyway, and you're going to hope that one day when you're in a circumstance where you need help, that someone's going to overcome that annoyance, that like being frustrated, all of that to help you. And so I live by that I have to push through those things. I have to push through the fatigue because I know that I have to show up in community how I would want others to show up for me. And also understanding too that there may not, some people may not know how to show up in community just yet, but that's why you have to walk into this world as an example. And they're gonna look at you and be like, well, if they can do it, I know I can. Or even if they may not know how to, you can help provide the tools for them to do so. Like I may not be able to teach people how to be a doula, but I can give you 85 organizations who can, and I will send them to you right now. So I think that's very important. And then also with working with kids, kids are I have the patience for it. I know some people don't. I do because kids don't know any better. I mean, I'm an adult and I don't know any better sometimes. So I give kids an immense amount of grace because they don't know any better. And so, yeah, I hope that also answered that question.
Listen, I love that. Children always deserve grace because I'm way older than you, Zoe, and I don't know what I'm like. I don't know what I'm doing, child. I need grace too. So I love that so much. So the next question is how to practice a love ethic in community when you feel separate from those who live around you.
Mm, that's a good question. Um, for me, I often when I'm feeling a little stuck or feeling a little alone, I find community in art. If that's reading, if that's film, but also there are so many people around you who think like you just have to find them. And so that could be, going to a book club or a film club or starting your own to find like-minded people. Um, and creating and start to like form those relationships because you'd be shocked by the people you meet. I've met a lot of great friends and comrades through just film clubs and film screenings and book clubs, school, just trying to find my community and my crowd. So I recommend, I'm very shy, believe it or not. But my work has forced me to not be. And so I had to learn how to put myself out there to find the community that I know could love and support me.
That's awesome. Thank you. So the next question is, how does one know that being a doula, abortion, birth, etc., is right for them? How do you remain grounded and strong to be such a strong advocate as a doula? I'm nervous. I'm in training programs for both right now, LOL.
I think you just know. But also, if it's not your calling, you can always change it. Um, I when I first graduated high school, I went to esthetician school and thought I wanted to do facials for people. That was not it. I did not want to do that. I was in there with it like for 6 months and I was like, yeah, this is not my thing. And I quit. And then I you also have to tell yourself why you're doing it. Growing up, my mom always asked us whenever we dreamed of being whatever, she was like, okay, how is this going to serve community? And how are you centering community in this work that you're doing? And that's why I became a doula, because I noticed a gap and I knew that's something that I could do because I'm not very like, nothing really scares me or makes me uncomfortable. So I knew that I could do birth work. But also you're able to you can bend and mold to wherever the community sees fit. When I started my work, I did not want to be alive like a birth doula. I wanted to be a postpartum doula. And then everybody around me got pregnant. So literally, friends, cousins, everybody was pregnant. I had 5 births within the first year of me being certified. So I kind of was like, yeah, I guess it's my lane for right now. And then I had to switch because then I met a woman while I was tabling for my 9 to 5 job who told me that she was a prison doula. I was like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, but they don't have it in Georgia yet. I was like, oh, I need to connect with you if we don't have it here. And that's how you bridge that gap. It's like I saw where the gap was and I was like, well, I'm gonna put myself there and I'm gonna bring all my people with me. So you'll know. You'll know. And if you don't, you can always find another place to be. You can always change what you want to do, to be honest. And don't let anything keep you in one space. My grandmother always says that she was a cultural worker and she was a filmmaker. People love her writings, but she was like, I am a filmmaker. I love film. So don't let that stop you. You can do whatever you would like to do.
That is really beautiful. Thank you for that. So the next question we have is, when did you come to the realization that you were a cultural worker? And did your life shift after the realization? If so, how?
Ooh. Yeah, I think when did I realize that? I think it was when I was laid off from my job. I was working at a nonprofit and I realized that I'm not a fan of the nonprofit industrial complex, of course. But I also felt as though the work that I was doing at that particular nonprofit wasn't good for me. And so that's why I decided to become a doula. I was laid off, was not making any money, was able to get a scholarship with the organization that certified me, and I was doing nannying to because I had literally just got a new apartment and everything. I thought I was killing it, and then I was laid off, and I was like, damn, I gotta make some money. So I wasn't taking any clients while I was getting certified, and I was nannying full time, nannying 3 kids, 2 3-year-olds and a 2-year-old every day. And I remember having a conversation with Jaleesa Jackson, who is brilliant, and they had brought up the importance of caretaking as cultural work, and I didn't think of it in that way because I was talking about my nanny experience on my Instagram because I love children. I still nanny to this day. Um Even though I really don't need to, but it's like if you call me, you need somebody to take care of your kids, I'm gonna do it. And I realized that I was shaping the minds of younger generations, and that everything the patience that I give them is what they're gonna learn and give when they are adults. And didn't realize how heavy that work was until I talked to them. And so moving forward, it changed my life in terms of my nannying and my doula work, but also just me as a person walking through life. I understand that everything that I say and everything I do is being watched. And not like in a bad way or anything, but people are taking things and wanting to learn things and wanting and seeing how they can move forward with using this and using that. So it changed my life in that way. Like I know that the work that I do is very important and people are watching, so I need to make sure that I'm doing it well intentioned. Because I want to do more good than harm.
Thank you, Zoe. You should see the folks in the comments, like that reframing that you said Jaleesa offered to you and that you're doing now is also helping others reframe their experiences. So I think this is much needed. Thank you so much. So your next question is, Zoe, how do you self-care and where do you go in ATL to play?
Oh, y'all, I be outside. And I really hope that people don't be looking at my Instagram like this girl is crazy. But I like to go out. I have on my dad's side, I have a huge family. So I am outside with my cousins every weekend, just doing whatever. I saw this TikTok where this girl was like, whatever you were calling to ask me, yes, I'm going. And that's me. I just like being around people, to be honest. Any chance, like after this, I'm going out. I just like being around people. I just like laughing with people. I just like being community with people. If that's book clubs, if that's going out and getting oysters, if that's getting a little cocktail, whatever people want to do, that's what I like to do. That is my self-care, is trying to learn how to be just just do whatever, and like and not, because once when I'm going through a tough time or a rough patch, I tend to isolate, which is, so I can't keep doing that because it's doing more harm than good. So I have friends and I have family who will literally pop up at my house and bring me food. Like my cousin today brought me some wings and greens and mac and cheese, and I was like, mashallah, I needed that. So that is my self-care, just being around the people that I love. They were not lemon pepper. I wish not lemon pepper, but I might get that tomorrow.
This question got me to like lemon pepper. Oh my goodness. So we're gonna ask a couple more questions.
Okay.
And someone said I missed the lemon pepper wings. Oh my gosh.
Don't do it.
I love, don't make me start singing a song that got lemon pepper in it, but let me stop. Okay. So this next question, this teaching was so beautiful and expanded the meaning of cultural work / brought to attention the most powerful use of cultural work. As a cultural worker, and as you spoke about uplifting people's voices instead of speaking for them, how do you find yourself able to hold space for people's fears, contempt, anger, confusion, and even problematic conclusions in favor of hearing them and respecting them while also guiding them away from letting those thoughts to fester?
That's a really great question. And that's something that I'm consistently working with on my in my own organizing journey, because I used to get so angry too when I would hear certain things. But honestly, my family was able to reframe how I think. Um, because my dad's side of the family grew up extremely poor. Um, my dad even talks about, growing up on the farm. Um, and just like certain experience that they had living in Georgia. Like I have older uncles. My oldest uncle is 75 years old. And so my dad is the baby of the family, even though my grandmother had him when she was 40. And so older uncles and older aunts, so they talk about what it was like before Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated and what it looked like after, what the riots were going on in Georgia, because they were in Georgia, Athens, and Adamsville. And so of course, with their thinking, how they think and how, like, for example, my grandma Toni and my mom think tend to be vastly different. So being in those spaces used to be extremely hard for me, because like, what do you mean you're not anti-capitalist? Or like, what do you mean you're not an abolitionist? It always confused me. But then I realized the difference in how they grew up, and the resources that, they both the resources that one had but one may not have had. Like my auntie Fidi said in the clip, my grandmother, my grandpa on my dad's side had a sixth grade education. I have an uncle who did not go past the third grade. And then I think about my mom, who's getting her master's degree, my grandmother who had a doctorate, her mom who went to college, and so all that to say, I've learned so much from my dad's side of the family, and it just has taught me to give these people grace and understanding, because they did not have the resources and the knowledge that was given to me. Even in like these movement spaces. Like I knew about Palestine when I was in sixth grade. And I literally, Dr. Kumba from Spelman, from the Women's Center, always laughs when I go into the Women's Center and says, she has known me since I've been in the womb. because my mom was always up there. And so I know that people may not have the knowledge or the understanding that I have, but it is my job to be in community with them, and to not teach at them, but to give them the resources to come to their own conclusions. And it requires um, a lot of patience and a lot of understanding, and just giving people a lot and a lot of grace. Because we all have a lot to unlearn. And so, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
I love that. A lot of just recognizing people are coming from different positions and perspectives you are, and how do we show each other grace and tenderness when we are not necessarily aligned, even socially, economically, politically, but still doing that care work, and that community work. So y'all, please do not get mad. We will not be able to get all to all these questions. Um, Also, like I said before, Zoe's amazing teach-in will be available on our YouTube. We will share it. We will make a post about it. And also there will be a reading list. So I apologize in advance for not being able to get to all the questions. But I feel like you've answered a lot of these other questions, but there's one that I think is great because you're an archivist too, Zoe, to me. And
Mhm.
you are. And
Thank you.
so the question is, how do you keep your family's histories? Do you have a family historian? Do some of your relatives share the role? What does maintaining relationships with your elders look like?
Well, that's a beautiful question. It's so funny. My cousins call me the family favorite, because I'm like the only cousin that will sit on the phone with with my elders for like hours, or just pop up at their house. And I just feel as though it is my job, um, just as a person in my family, just a person in community, to listen and learn as much as I can. So when I eventually have children, I can pass it on to my children. Because like I said, I think parenting is cultural work, and this is how we preserve the culture. Um, and we do have, it's so funny. On both sides of my family, we have very artistic and creative people. My family's full of cultural workers, even though they may not know that they're cultural workers. Like, quick little side note, my auntie Feedy, she was in the military, and she had two kids while she was in the military, and she helped every woman in her, I guess, brigade or platoon or whatever, give birth. And I was like, that's a doula, right? And she was like, a doula? And like, she helped, I think, 8 or 9 women give birth while she was stationed in Germany, and did not realize the power and what she was. But anyway, all of my uncles love photography. A lot of the pictures of my mamas that I had in this presentation I got from their Facebook or had them sent to me. They love taking pictures. So I have, elders who have like hundreds of photo albums. And then on my mom's side, the same thing, so many stories. I am thankful that my grandma Toni wrote so much, because a lot of these things I was able to just find online. Because like I said, I didn't get to meet my grandma Toni. So a lot of the stuff that I learned were from her interactions with other people, how she showed up in community, and how she raised my mother. That's how I was able to learn from her. And so I think it's so important that everybody, well, for one, make more time for the elders around them, not just your family members. This can be maybe the elderly lady who lives down the street, who you see coming home from work every day. And just having those connections with people, or just talking to, I don't know how many people are from the South, but I talk to elderly people every day. If it's at the grocery store, if it's walking, because I speak I speak to them because that's what we do in the South. But um just having those conversations it's so important, and taking pictures. And I need to get better with printing those pictures out. I like physical copies of things. As you can see, I write on as many little pieces of paper that I have in my home. And so I just, yes, full of culture workers in my family, and I just would like for everybody to just talk to their elders more, and write down everything you can, because you're not going to remember everything, but write it down.
Wow. You should see these comments, Zoe. Someone was like, they didn't want this teaching to end. This was the best day. I just really thank you so much for just expanding our frame of reference regarding the importance of community building, being a caretaker, cultural work. This teaching fits so well into our Black Feminist Marronage Series, because how do we create new worlds without centering the folks next to us? Even if we don't have the same political perspectives, we can't leave folks behind. And we can't even leave ourselves behind. We have to keep going. I'm so grateful for the lessons of your grandmothers, that you were able to share with us. It's such a gift and a treat. And thank you so, so, so much. Wanted to give you your flowers. Like I said before, y'all, this teaching will be available on Black Radical's YouTube. We will share it. There's going to be a reading list. I also want to shout out our amazing ASL interpreters, Monique and Gloshonda. Thank you to Gloshonda for having an amazing Black woman-owned ASL interpreting company. And so we've been working with them for a few years now. So thank you both. And thank y'all so much for showing up. And just once again, Zoe, thank you for this bomb. We really needed this during these horrible times, these perilous times. And so thank you, thank you, thank you again. And y'all, please consider donating to the GoFundMe to open a physical location for the School for Black Feminist Politics, as I said, that we can continue to have these conversations. Zoe, I'm offering it to you now, Zoe. You got to lead a teaching in person at the school.
Yes. Yes, of course.
But you got my mom back here saying, she was like, I like her. And I'm like, yes.
I love it. Absolutely.
So thank y'all so, so, so much. And Zoe, did you have any last words before we close out?
Just thank you guys for I was so nervous. Thank you guys for being so patient and loving. And I hope that I'm able to work with all of you sometime in the future.
Thank you, Zoe. Have a good night, y'all. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.